Not only is this phone cheap, but it's an excellent value for your dollar. Here's why. What's up guys, I'm Jared the Tech Avenger, and I'm actually really pumped to show you guys a phone that I discovered out of the blue. Only pun you'll hear from me in this video, I promise. A friend of mine wanted an Android phone. Not an expensive flagship, just an Android. Something that is reliable and can use a lot of today's common apps, such as WhatsApp, Snapchat, etc. I initially tested the Modishi A5 Pro, a low-budget Android on Amazon, and I was frankly disgusted. I didn't expect the world from it, but it couldn't even deliver on basic phone functions. It was slow, laggy, and an overall horrible experience. Cue the BLU G9, a phone I found for 240 Canadian. That's 182 US. And before I go any further, I'm in no way sponsored or have any affiliation with BLU. I bought this phone with my own money, with my friend's own money, so I can give him, and hopefully all of you, some insight into the phone. I hate talking about the specs of a phone because that definitely isn't a true tell about its everyday performance. Hell, I've seen some flagships that tout specs all day, but when it comes to when it actually matters, it doesn't translate. So let's gloss over this real quick. We got an octa-core processor. That's 8 cores. Sounds intense, hey? Trust me, it's not. The device does have its hiccups at times, but by no means is it actually horrible. It does have 4 gigs of RAM, but one thing that stood out was the 4000 mAh battery. That is better than a lot of flagships that I've seen this year, and for the price of the BLU G9, I was impressed. But again, how does that translate to real-world usage? We'll get into that soon. The phone comes with a USB-C charging cable and a charging brick, but rather than jumping on the Courage bandwagon, BLU is living up to its name. We also have an included screen protector and transparent TPU case, which feels surprisingly nice. Around the device, we have the standard power, volume rocker keys, a dual SIM card slot, which is awesome for those who love to travel or just want their work and personal phone together. It also doubles as a micro SD slot if you wanted to forego the extra SIM. And the bottom has a headphone jack, USB-C port, and a loudspeaker. We can unlock the phone with a standard fingerprint reader behind the device, which sits under the dual camera system. It claims to have a 52 megapixel super zoom, but I wouldn't hold my breath there. The camera is pretty subpar, and it can do decently well in daylight conditions, but beyond that is kind of iffy. Booting up the camera can be done with a double press on the power button. It has a ton of features in the camera app, such as night mode, 52 megapixel mode, HDR, and Pro mode, but none of these modes actually gave me any sort of shots that blew me away. The 52 megapixel super zoom is highly touted on BLU's webpage as using state-of-the-art AI to capture incredible sharpness when looking at the nitty-gritty details. I wouldn't bank on this feature at all. Capturing is pretty slow, and the image looks horrible when zoomed in. Portrait mode isn't nearly as good as those on higher end devices that use software to compensate for any shortcomings. But hey, people spending this much money on a phone aren't looking to get a crazy camera. It does the job for standard shots and everyday photos with a bit of pizzazz. So what do I mean by that? Well, it does have some cool features which I wish were present in a higher end phone camera, such as built-in GIF functions and brand watermarking, which stood out to me the most. Now the front-facing camera is pretty good if you have a decent amount of light. When it comes to video, don't expect iPhone or pixel quality footage. I'll actually let you guys be the judge on the video and the audio from both cameras. Test with the BLU G9. It looks pretty choppy in the viewfinder when I'm just moving around here. I don't know how that'll look like in the final footage, but I also noticed the autofocus is getting thrown off. It's all over the place here. Might want to put it in manual focus mode, just because this thing is not great at focusing. Facing camera of the BLU G9. It looks a lot better than the rear camera. The background is a bit washed out though, which kind of sucks, but it's a lot smoother. I don't know how the mic will do, but hopefully they come out with a firmware upgrade for the rear camera, because that's kind of disappointing. Yeah, hopefully that turned out pretty well. It's recording in 1080p as well on the front facing camera. But what does this phone have that would justify it as a daily driver for most? Well, for starters, the design isn't half bad, and it's plastic, but it's very easy to hold, despite it coming with a case. I would rock this without one and feel very confident that it would survive a couple drops. Throughout my daily usage, I've had no issues with the phone choking up or any major lag. Maybe a couple frame drops here and there when using apps or swiping across home screens, but that in itself is very impressive considering the type of processor that it's using. Most times it even actually felt like I was using a Pixel device. I loaded some common games onto the device and played them without any issues. Graphically intensive games would stutter briefly, but nothing major. Some of the games I tested included Subway Surfers, Modern Warfare, Mario Kart, and Temple Run, and every one of those titles performed admirably. Everyday tasks such as watching Netflix or Plex for streaming, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all loaded pretty quick and remained in memory for quite some time without having to reload. The multitasking button will show you what's in memory, and a nice added touch is showing how much of those 4 gigs you're using in real time. When you're looking at some of the intangible value that this phone brings, we have to delve a little deeper into the software. The OS is Android 9.0 as of this writing, and running on top is a minimal custom skin by BLU. The skin is not bloated whatsoever, and the home screen is almost similar to the Google Pixel with the ability to access Google Now by swiping to the far left. There are some apps that are pre-installed, but they're very easy to uninstall or disable. What I love are the little features sprinkled throughout the OS, which gives you added functionality without the need of installing third-party apps. For example, I can screen record right from the drop-down menu, and the implementation gesture for screenshotting is probably my favorite when compared to other phones, as it only requires a 3-finger swipe. Now, it's also worth mentioning that you have some options when it comes to customizing the navigation bar on the device. And let's not forget that ability to use dual SIMs. I think this option is fantastic if you travel a lot. You won't have to use 2 different phones or compromise which number you want to use. And if you don't want to use an extra SIM, you can always utilize that space with a micro SD card. That's what I call economical. I wanted to save the best for last, the battery. The battery on this thing is phenomenal. Phones these days, even flagships, barely last a day. But with the built-in 4000 mAh battery and some software optimization that BLU implemented, this thing lasted me a good 2 to 3 days, depending on my usage. Even with my heavy usage of occasionally streaming videos on YouTube, playing games, making phone calls throughout the day, listening to music on drives home, and taking photos or using Snapchat, I'd still get at least 30 hours without having to plug it in. That is a definite win in my books, flagship or not. And with quick charge and battery saver, I doubt you'll have to rely on a wall outlet often. So, what are my thoughts on this phone? What would I tell my buddy if he wanted to buy this right now? In a nutshell, this is the most well-rounded device with an incredibly low price tag. If you're looking for something that you can rely on day in and day out, and if you aren't bothered by the random frame drops or stutter, this is something that you should consider. Even buying this as a gift for a loved one or a friend is an excellent idea. If price was a major factor to me, this would be a no-brainer. And hey, if you're looking for this phone, we made it easy by putting some affiliate links down below to Amazon. Using those links below will also enable you to support us financially and keep the channel going. But even if you find this phone cheaper elsewhere, you should jump on it. I wouldn't mind using this as my daily driver, and the fact that I can simultaneously use it as my travel phone with the dual SIM capabilities just makes the BLU G9 more appealing. What do you guys think about the BLU G9? Is this something that you would get behind? And if so, would you use it as your primary daily driver? We'd love to hear from you. Hope you enjoyed this review. Like always, I'm Jer the Tech Venger. Don't forget, when it comes to tech, the Tech Vengers are there. We got your back.